I used to believe that family meant safety, that no matter what happened in the world, the people inside your home would never hurt you. It's funny how naive that sounds now. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and when I was 18, my world shifted in a way I never expected. I didn't see it coming, not completely. But deep down, I think a part of me always knew something wasn't right. The signs were there, quiet, lingering glances, touches that lasted a beat too long, a voice that changed when it was just the two of us. My stepdad's name was Mark Holloway. He married my mom when I was 14. My father had died in a boating accident 2 years before, and I think my mom was so desperate to feel whole again that she ignored every warning sign. Mark was charming in a clean-cut way. He had a strong jaw, salt and pepper hair, wore pressed shirts even on weekends, and always smelled like fresh pine and something woodsy. He worked from home as a financial consultant, which meant he was always around, especially when my mom, Stephanie, took up her new role managing evening shifts at the hospital. I was the only child. The house was quiet most days. Too quiet. It started small. I was 16 when I noticed the way Mark's eyes followed me when I walked into a room. Not in the way a father looks at a daughter. No, this was different. His gaze would dip, pause too long on my legs, or follow my curves as I reached for something on a high shelf. At first, I brushed it off, told myself I was imagining it, that I was being dramatic. But the looks didn't stop. Neither did the comments. Sometimes he'd say I was growing into a beautiful young woman. He said it like a compliment, but it made my stomach twist. Still, I said nothing. I didn't want to upset my mom. I didn't want to sound like I was accusing him of something he hadn't exactly done. I didn't say anything, not even when he started knocking softly before coming into my room, but still entering without waiting. I never locked my door then. That changed. One time I was changing my shirt, and he walked in. He paused in the doorway, eyes locking on mine, then slowly lowered to the skin I hadn't covered yet. He didn't apologize. He just nodded and said, "Carry on." That stuck with me. It made me feel bare in a way I couldn't explain. The night it really changed, the night everything finally crossed that invisible line, was just a few days after my 18th birthday. It was hot. Too hot for early September in Portland. I couldn't sleep. My sheets stuck to my skin, and the air conditioning barely worked. I walked downstairs wearing a pair of loose cotton shorts and a tank top, hoping to grab a cold bottle of water and sneak back up to bed. The kitchen lights were on. Mark was sitting at the island, sipping whiskey from a lowball glass. He didn't look surprised to see me. In fact, he looked like he'd been waiting. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked, voice smooth and low. I nodded, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. He watched me. I could feel his eyes on me before I even turned around. It was like heat against my skin. When I finally looked at him, he didn't look away. "You've grown up so fast, Lauren," he said. His voice was too soft, like he was letting me in on a secret no one else was supposed to hear. I mumbled something about going back to bed, but he stepped forward, blocking the exit with casual ease. His hand reached out to brush my hair behind my ear. The gesture should have felt fatherly. It didn't. It felt deliberate. Slow. Heavy. You remind me of your mother when she was your age," he said, his eyes dipping again. "But you're different. More confident. Smarter." I tried to sidestep him, but his hand lingered, fingers grazing my bare arm. My skin prickled. I should have walked away. I should have screamed or pushed him or said something. But I froze. My body locked up with a strange combination of fear and disbelief. Part of me was still hoping I was reading it wrong, that this was nothing. But deep inside, I knew exactly what this was. And so did he. The tension cracked when we both heard the sound of a car door outside. Mom was home. He stepped back instantly, grabbing his glass and retreating to the stool like nothing had happened. I stood frozen in place, water bottle still clenched in my hand as the door opened. Mom stepped in, kicked off her shoes, and smiled at both of us. "You two couldn't sleep either?" she said with a warm laugh. Mark smiled back, raised his glass slightly and kissed her cheek. I couldn't move. My stomach churned. My mind raced. How could she not feel it? How could she not notice the air was too thick, too quiet? I went upstairs before she could ask anything else. I locked my door that night and every night after. The next few days were unbearable. Mark didn't say anything. He acted like nothing had happened. He'd still smile, still ask me about school, still leave little notes on the kitchen counter with things like, "Good luck on your quiz," or "Don't forget your umbrella." But something in his eyes had shifted. He looked at me like we had a secret, like I owed him something. I started avoiding him at all costs, leaving earlier for school, coming back later, pretending to be on the phone. But the truth is, our house wasn't that big. I couldn't avoid him forever. A week later, Mom had to leave for a 2-day work conference in Seattle. I begged her to let me stay at my friend Marissa's house. She said no, that Mark would be there and I'd be safe. I smiled and nodded. I didn't argue, but the second she walked out that door, my heart started to pound. That evening, he ordered pizza and put on a movie. I told him I had homework. I stayed locked in my room for hours, pretending to study. My phone buzzed with a message from him. "Dinner's getting cold." I ignored it. A second one came. "We can't avoid each other forever." My fingers tightened around my phone. I didn't reply. At midnight, I crept downstairs to grab a slice. The lights were off, except a low lamp over the sink. I opened the fridge, not realizing he was sitting in the shadows at the island until he spoke. "Couldn't resist the pizza, huh?" I jumped, the water bottle almost slipping from my hand. He stood up slowly, like a scene playing in slow motion. My back was to the fridge, no space to move. He walked toward me, calm, like he was entitled to be there. "Entitled to me. You've been avoiding me," he said, too softly. I told him I had nothing to say, that I wanted to go back to bed. He moved closer, close enough that I could smell the whiskey on his breath again. "You didn't stop me that night, Lauren." His words froze the air. I didn't respond. My chest was tight, breath shallow. He touched my wrist, not hard, just enough to remind me that he could. I pulled away. "Don't touch me," I whispered. He laughed softly like I was being silly. "You're just confused," he said. "This is normal. You're growing up. You feel things. It doesn't mean we did anything wrong." I stared at him in disbelief. He was rewriting everything, trying to make it my fault, trying to paint what he did as some shared secret, some mutual moment. It wasn't. I turned and walked away, shaking, my legs barely holding me up as I made it to my room and locked the door. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my bed, knees to my chest, trying to decide what to do. I wanted to protect my mom. I wanted to forget it happened. But more than anything, I wanted to feel safe in my own house again. When Mom came home the next evening, I pulled her aside. My voice trembled, but I told her the truth. Not everything, just enough. That Mark had crossed boundaries, that he'd made comments, that he touched me in ways that made me uncomfortable. Her face crumpled in disbelief. Then guilt. She didn't cry, not in front of me, but I could tell it shattered her. Mark moved out 2 days later. I didn't ask where he went. I didn't care. Mom never said what happened between them, but she made it clear he was never coming back. She changed the locks. She apologized over and over. I told her it wasn't her fault. I wanted to believe that. I think she did too. The house is quieter now. Empty in a different way. But it's also cleaner. Lighter. I don't lock my door anymore. I don't check behind me when I walk down the stairs. I still think about that night. About the moment I didn't stop him. But I understand now. Fear isn't weakness. It's a reaction. Silence doesn't mean consent. And survival is sometimes the only thing you can do in a moment you never asked for. He crossed the line, but I'm the one who closed the door. And this time I locked it for good.